What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my top 10 favorite video games of 2025. My name is Josh, also known as Frantic, the Hype Man, or just my full name, Josh Leslie, on the internet. Here I am talking about my favorite games that I played in 2025. But before we jump into that, I have like 10 non-2025 beats and like games I want to discuss. But let's go over some stats before we jump into everything here. We got 56 total beats last year completed, and then we have 26 games that are from 2025 altogether. But so that basically means that 30 games last year were games that were quote unquote old games. So I wanted to talk about those a little bit at the top and talk about my thought process last year and going into this year as well. So basically what I was considering last year going into 2025 was that I wanted to try to play some stuff out of my comfort zone. I wanted to play some things that were a little bit older, even if it was a year old. I feel like what I end up doing a lot of times is chasing the new thing, playing the new thing, and then if I don't happen to beat it, oh, well, we'll just move on to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So I wanted to be a little bit more all-encompassing in my gaming and get a lot done. So honestly, this is probably the most games I've played in an entire year, calendar year, maybe ever. It's up there for sure. I also played a lot of roguelike games, over 20 of them, and games that I wouldn't say they're all roguelikes, but a lot of them were. And they're the games that are kind of like the everlasting gobstoppers that you can just keep on playing and playing and trying runs and doing different things, trying new synergies, trying new builds, things like that. Those didn't really even make my list because most of them I didn't even get credits on. So it's kind of one of those things where I probably played 70, 80 games last year, but of course only beat 56 total. So before we jump into everything, we're going to go into some non-2025 games first. I want to give them a highlight, some honorable mentions for the year as well before we jump into the top 10 list. First off, we got Crypt Custodian. Crypt Custodian is one of those games that I was looking at and thinking about, and I actually heard about it from a few different people, including Seth from IndieQuest, one of my co-hosts there. And the game just has a beautiful art style, very well executed gameplay thing. It's a top-down game where you play as a cat and you're in the afterlife and you're cleaning up the afterlife. That's kind of your goal. So you have a broom, and throughout this entire game, you start getting new powers, very gated exploration or Metroidvania or search action, whatever term you want to use for that genre. And you gain new abilities, gain new powers, and fight some awesome and interesting boss fights. And it's beautiful, has great music. And the creator of this game is Kyle Thompson. And I'm at the point where I feel like I'm going to be a diehard fan of this creator. And this year going forward in 2026, I do plan to play Islets and Sheepo and his new game, Well Dweller, which comes out later in the year. So yes, Crypt Custodian was such a good game. It brought a big smile to my face every time I played it. And it was one of those ones where I played it in a few days. It was just like I was binging it, just enjoying it so much that I can't wait to see what else this game creator has to offer. And that was a 2024 title I missed and played early in the year in 2025. Similar idea here is Cato Buttered Cat. I know, it's silly name, silly premise for the game, but basically you have a cat attached to butter toast. You know the old saying, if you throw a cat off a building, it's going to land on its feet. If you throw a butter toast off a building, it's going to land, I think it's butter toast side down because of the weight and the inertia of the fall. Stick those two together, you have basically this infinite non-falling entity that's combined together, which is Cato Buttered Cat. And there are a ton of awesome and interesting puzzle mechanics that are introduced in this game. Has a very striking and cartoony art style. It's just a clever puzzle platformer with just a lot of character, a lot of fun. You know, it has a little bit of a sense of humor. It has a lot of secrets, And the puzzles are actually challenging, but they're not so challenging that they're impossible to overcome. And it was just a really big surprise as well. And this one, I got to hand it to Seth from IndieQuest. I probably wouldn't have not heard about this one at all if it wasn't for him. So this game, those two games from last year blew me away. And speaking of last year, another game I missed that's another one of those Metroidvania games is Ultros. Oh my God, the art style to this game is just, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And the music in it as well is just so damn good. Art style, music, just gameplay. And it has so many cool ideas. It has kind of like a run-based mechanic in it, but it's not a roguelike. You're building towards the end of the game. And basically, as you defeat bosses, it restarts this loop. And it's just so cool because you have these little seeds you can plant, and the plants do different things. I don't want to spoil too much for what this gameplay has all to offer, but Ultros was a huge highlight of my year. And I wish I would have played it last year because I have a feeling that it would have been higher on my list last year. So I think that's it for 2024 games besides Metaphor, ReFantazio. Oh my God, this game was so good. So my thought going into the year is I want to get back into trying different genres and styles of games I don't really gravitate towards. So Metaphor was one of those. It's a turn-based RPG with a lot of interesting mechanics, and it's just very deep, very satisfying. It's one of those ones where you start getting into the world, into the universe, into the characters, into the gameplay systems, into the music, into the art style, and it just starts to strike a chord, especially for me. Like, I love a found family, trying to build a team, best friends, got each other's backs to defeat the evil, like, of course, I'm like one of the biggest Kingdom Hearts fans ever. No, maybe not, but I'm up there. I love Kingdom Hearts and love that, the whole thing they got there. The games are what they are. But anyway, Metaphor ReFantazio was one of those ones where it really struck a chord with me. I love the gameplay systems. I love the characters, and this game is going to be one of my favorites of all time. Like, similar to when I played Prince of Persia in 2024, The Lost Crown, that game kind of reignited my love for Metroidvanias and things like that. Now I can't get enough of them. I feel like Metaphor ReFantazio is the same thing for me, but for JRPGs and turn-based systems. This game reinvigorated that love for just getting into the intricacies of a gameplay system. And I was like, you know what? I got to keep on going with this like trend of getting out of my comfort zone. So this year I played a couple games that I technically or generally would not look at or try to play. So another one of these was Tactical Breach Wizards, which was just hilarious. So anything with humor and that has some type of comedy to it's going to I'm going to gravitate towards that anyway, especially if it's well done. And the jokes kind of hit with me. They have some interesting mechanics that kind of play into the humor of it. So this is a game where you play as wizards that are like a tactical team trying to do these like heists and missions and things like that. It's not heist, but it's more like you're a team trying to basically unscrew up the world or unfuck the world. You're trying to be good, and it's a tactical game. I feel like the thing that was nice about this, and I feel like this is actually a really good like entry point to the genre, because I really haven't played many tactical games or tactical RPGs at all. Really, that's not really my bag, but this game has like repeats that you can do, things that are very lenient to the player that felt good to me as somebody that was kind of a newbie to the genre. It makes me want to get more into like grid-based tactical games, because it was just so interesting to be a part of that, like the skills, the feeling that you get when you make a plan and you use all the things at your disposal in your turns to defeat the enemy. It feels really good. The game was really well written, very funny, very fun to play. I highly recommend that one. And then another game that I kind of got out of my comfort zone with was In Stars and Time, another JRPG, which is from a few years ago. It has a black and white art style. It's hand drawn. It looks kind of reminds me a little bit. I mean, this is easy to say, and a lot of people will probably mention this like in passing or like alongside like a game like Undertale or something like that, where it's a JRPG with unique systems and characters you really start to identify with and are very broad and, very inclusive. There's a lot of, LGBTQ characters in this. There's a lot of queer characters, queer folk in this. I really appreciate that. And it's just a very powerful story about this guy who's at the end of, or this person who's at the end of this big journey, and they're trying to defeat this king, and he's stuck in a time loop, and the time loop keeps going over and over and over again. And by the time you get to the end of the story, you kind of seen like the beats many times, but in different like situations and different arrangements. You start to really realize that, hey, I spent all these times with these characters, and these characters haven't really experienced that. But to me, in this time loop story, I've learned a lot about myself and about these characters and about this world, and just it has a really great message. It's a lot of fun, and I think the music and gameplay are just kind of perfect for what it's trying to do. A huge highlight for me this year. So I have a few more here. I'm kind of going to go slowly a little more retro till I get them to the most retro game I want to shout out here. Next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about Trombone Champ. I know it's kind of out of left field. It's a quirky, fun rhythm game. This is one I played on Switch with my partner, and we had so much fun using the motion controls to do basically play act like we're playing trombone. And this game just it's dumb. It's funny. You play the trombone music. It doesn't sound great. It sounds mostly like a MIDI version of a trombone or something like that. It's very corny. You're playing a lot of marching band adjacent themes, and then some that are not. And it's just really funny, really cheesy. It knows what it is, commits to the bit very well, and it works even better with like a motion control element. It's a lot of fun. It was a huge highlight for me this year. So I got 2 retro games I want to shout out, and then we'll do a couple honorable mentions, and then we'll jump into my top 10 for 2025. So we have Rhythm Heaven Silver, or Rhythm Tengoku. I think I said that right. Probably didn't. But this is the original Rhythm Heaven on GBA translated into English. And this was just kind of like a random curiosity I had. So last Christmas, I gave you my Mio Mini Plus. Yeah, I got a Mio Mini Plus. Don't judge me on my singing there. We got the Mio Mini Plus here in the house, and I installed a bunch of GBA games and a bunch of other stuff on emulator there, obviously, so I could take it to work or have it around the house just to pick up and play here and there. And I saw on there that the original Rhythm Heaven was on the ROM collection that I got. And, I just popped in there and I fell in love instantly. I knew I would love this series, but man, I didn't know I would love it as much as I ended up loving this first one. Makes me want to go play the others in the series. But take these just crazy scenarios, like the most out there scenarios, and turn them into 1 to 2 button rhythm games that are pretty damn challenging at times. I do think the handheld had a little bit of delay that I had to learn and kind of get the feel for it, and there was no real way to change that or have that little bit of delay or a little bit of it's probably a 0.75 millisecond or something, but it's enough to notice. playing a rhythm game. I got used to it by the end of the whole entire like story and quote unquote story and all the different rhythm games they put in there. And this game was just a lot of fun. It was just easy to pick up and play a couple stages for 30, 40 minutes, put down, pick it back up, unlock the little handheld engine. It was just perfect. It was ideal. I really loved it, and I know that there's a new one coming out for Switch 2 or Switch and Switch 2 later in 2026. So I'm looking forward to what that has, and I'll definitely be picking that up. Last but not least, for non-2025 games, I want to shout out is Donkey Kong 94. There's not much to say about this. It's the original Game Boy Donkey Kong game, and it was so special to me. So what this game does that's unique is they take the original Donkey Kong formula, like the old school arcade Donkey Kong formula. You're going up the girders to get Pauline at the top that Donkey Kong and Jumpman has. I don't even know if it was called Donkey Kong at the time. Oh, yeah, obviously it was called Donkey Kong at the time, but I don't know if she was called Pauline. I know he was called Jumpman. Who knows? People know, but anyway, Donkey Kong 94 was so cool because it took that idea and made like multi-world puzzle game things off of that basic premise. So the original, everybody's played the original Donkey Kong, or at least seen it. You know what it looks like. You know what the first 3 stages are. You do those 3 stages, and then this game's turned into like this really unique puzzle game that's very much like and inspired Mario and Donkey Kong games. And those games seem pretty damn cool. They're just puzzle games where you're trying to figure out, usually like a one-screen puzzle game. You got a screen, and you got to figure out how to solve it, get the key to open a door to get to the top and save the princess or save the damsel in distress. Takes that idea, just expounds upon it so much. It's exponentially more and more interesting and unique as you play it, and it ages really well. It feels like a modern game, even though it came out on the Game Boy back in 94. So definitely one to check out if you're into retro games. And I know if you're into retro games, you've probably played this and you've probably heard about it a bunch, but it was a huge surprise for me this year, and I feel like it was worth mentioning. So before we jump into my top 10 list proper, I have 2 quick honorable mentions because I did not finish these titles. I don't know if they would make my top 10, but I assume that they would. So actually, let's make that 3 because one got knocked out for my top 10 for the 10th placement. We'll talk about it in a second. But first off, we got Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is honestly the game I'm playing right now. I started this back, I think it came out in August or July, and I enjoyed what I played, but something happened where I kind of just like lost interest in playing it. I do think the game is really well made. It's really fun. I love the interactions between young Pauline and Donkey Kong kind of being like this newly revamped looking Donkey Kong, which was divisive for some reason. He looks fine. It's the style of the game. He's just kind of like a himbo, kind of smarmy, kind of derpy Donkey Kong. He's just fun to play that character. He smashes everything. His main goal in life is to get as many bananas as he possibly could. And it's just a lot of fun. But for whatever reason, I stopped playing it. And I'm playing it now. Like I picked it back up just yesterday. It's January 2nd now. And I'm going to go through it. I think this one's going to kind of land like, 8 out of 10 range. It's not going to be like an all-timer for me. And I say that sounding a little disappointed in my voice, right? But like it's an awesome game. I really enjoy it. I feel like it's lacking a little bit of that level design polish that I come to expect from like a Mario game or like Mario Odyssey or like Galaxy or something like that. It's a little more open, and that's because the mechanics of the game kind of like beckon the level designers to create them like that. Like, hey, you can destroy everything in the entire universe here, but you have to leave it open. You kind of have to leave some of the puzzles a little harder to solve, or like a little bit like not like, hey, this is how you solve it. It's more like, here's a sandbox, figure it out, you know? And I don't know if I want that in a 3D platformer. So I feel like it loses a little bit of its like, 10 out of 10 status for me. But that's not to say if I would have finished this game, it might have made my top 10 because it was a tough year just generally, but I'm really enjoying it. I just don't know if it's going to hit the heights of like a Mario Odyssey from that same exact team. Next up, we got, for like a quick honorable mention, we have 2 more here, and then we will definitely do a top 10. The first one we got is Claire Obscure Expedition 33. And yes, I know this is blasphemous for a lot of people out there, a lot of people who like, this game. This game got critically loved and everything. But the thing is I started the game. I know it's really good. This year, or last year now, 2025, I focused in on primarily indie games because of my podcast, Indie Quest. Plus, that's where my interest is kind of lying more and more as I get older and want to see more unique takes on video games and what, smaller creative voices have to say in the medium. So I played a little bit of this a couple months ago, got about 8 to 9 hours in. I understood what it is, and I know I'm going to love it. And I'd be surprised if it didn't make top 5 or so in this list. I just didn't finish it. There's just so many games I played. Like I said, I played 56 games plus all the roguelites and just a bunch of other stuff I dabbled with. And I played like 20 hours of Minecraft randomly in March because that's just me. I'm like, oh yeah, we started like a little server and I just devoured that game. That is my favorite game ever. So if I get into it, I get into it, So anyway, just didn't have time, and I probably could have made time, and I'm going to make time. I'm going to play this game this year, but I just didn't get around to it, and I know it's awesome. I know it's well loved for a reason. It's many people's game of the years. I just didn't get around to it. So it happens. So I wanted to mention here, and this is right before we jump into the top 10. There is, for my 10th place, I have 2 I was thinking of. One I just played, one I played a few months ago, like when it first came out. And I landed on the other one I'll talk about when I get to my top 10 list, which just came out recently. But the one that just barely got pushed off. So I had a top 10 list I made for my Indie Quest, top 10. And then I slotted in some other AAA games. And honestly, it's not that many. But one did end up kind of pushing out an indie game here in Haste. I think it's just called Haste now. I think it was called like Haste Shattered World or something like that before, but now it's just called Haste. It's a runner game. It's really unique. It's roguelike. So basically you're just running away from the camera. It's an auto runner. You're running and you're trying to gain the momentum by going down these hills over and over again until you're blasting across the map, full speed, just blazing a trail, trying to get to the end of each stage here. And they rearrange everything. They have like this really awesome, like randomly generated environment that has different color schemes, different styles, different obstacles that you will encounter, and it gets a little bit harder as you go through, and there's like even harder stages that you can encounter, or as you're going up the path to get to the boss fight of the world, you can pick like, oh, do I want to do like a mystery stage? Do I want to do like a regular run stage, or do I want to do like the harder stages? You get some more materials, you can level up your guy, you get a little more fast, and then you have like 10 worlds you got to get through to beat the big bad and beat the game. This game it's immaculate, man. It's so fun to play. It feels good to play once you get the mechanics down. It's one of those ones I'll never forget. But it didn't quite make my top 10 officially for the year here because I have another one I want to talk about as I jump into my top 10 for 2025. My number 10 for 2025 is Dispatch. Yeah, this game I just played not even that long ago. very recent for me, but it hit hard. It's one of the better one of these style of games. So basically, if you haven't seen Dispatch, and I feel like it'd be hard not to see it this year because it was very popular, very well loved. But it's a superhero game, kind of in that old school telltale format. Telltale, like Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us. This is actually the studio and a lot of the creators of the original The Wolf Among Us game came together with Critical Role and a bunch of really popular voice actors and some influencers and streamers and things like that to voice the cast. So you have two elements to this game. You have the storyline of Robert Robertson, who is kind of down on his luck superhero in this dispatch agency, managing superheroes, and basically there's a superhero management dispatch mini game inside of this game where you're managing characters, trying to solve crimes with a bunch of counters and leveling up the characters. This Z team, they're called, as you're going through. And the thing about this is the gameplay itself is a lot of fun. Managing it, learning each synergy. There's a hacking minigame that is okay. It's fine. That's always the actual dispatching part is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed managing okay, min-max this. Okay, I got this guy going here. It's kind of like you're rubbing your tummy and patting your head at the same time. It's a very overcooked-ish kind of where you're trying to do multiple things at the same time and trying to manage your resources and your characters to solve all the crimes and to level up your team to get more points, to get your team stronger, and to kind of boost all of their stats and have them learn new skills and things like that. And that part is really fun, but that's not even the highlight of the game. The highlight of the game is the characters, the story, and the impactful choices that you get. It does the thing that Telltale does so well where there'll be a story moment where there's two characters talking, and then you have to pick out of three options this choice. And you have a timer ticking down. You got to pick something. You maybe have 10 seconds. You maybe have a minute. But you got to figure out what is the best option to go forward. And when you make that option, real things happen that will affect the story and characters. And that is your story. And you build your story by making these choices. And that's what these games do really well. And I feel like this is a really good example of that, and I can't wait to see what they do in the future. This game was really successful, really well done, and we talked about it on my podcast. I mentioned that podcast a couple of times. It's IndieQuest. They have this game. It's not quite indie, not quite AAA. It kind of lands in that clair obscure point where it's there are a lot of popular people in here. It's very well funded. It has a lot of money behind it, and it's not quite one of those ones you would call indie, even though it feels indie in spirit. But yeah, I highly recommend Dispatch if you haven't tried it yet. It's one of those ones where I didn't know if I would love it as much as I did, but once I got into it and started getting into that story and learning the characters, seeing what their motivations were, picking my romance options and, all that stuff, I fell in love with it. So that's my number 10 for the year. For my number 9 overall indie and AAA 2025 game list, I ended up having OO, which is OOO. That's how you spell the name of the game. Probably be on the screen right now in some form or another, or in the description down below. But this is a game by Nama Takahashi. This creator made Leckhead a couple years ago. And this is one of those guys who just makes really creative and unique games. So OO is really cool. You play as this little caterpillar that has a tail that's bombs. You start off with one bomb, and as you're going through these puzzles, you start learning new mechanics in the environment. And it's one of those games where as you discover new things that you can do with this gameplay mechanic, you realize that, hey, maybe I could have been using this the entire time, or I should have known that I could have done this gameplay mechanic the entire time. It's very clever, has a very unique look and feel to it, has gameplay that gives you that puzzle game aha moment so many times that it's hard to resist, and it was a really great game. I'm just gonna be honest. Every game after, like any game in this top 10 are bangers. These are like all. If I was gonna rate any of these, I'm gonna rate them like very highly, like 9 to 10 out of 10. Like these are all awesome games. It's just a very, very hard and competitive year for me to figure out a list of games because there were so many good that I loved. These games, I adore every single one of these and have very little detractors for any of them because it was like one of those ones where I'm like, how does he even think of this? Like it was so unique and interesting how all of these different mechanics play. So basically, let's give a premise. Like, okay, you're in an area, you come up upon this thing, and you have to somehow get your tail bomb on top of your head, right? How do I do this? I don't know. But they lay out the environment just so that there's a block above your head that you can jump up on, drop the bomb, and then plop down real quick and get the bomb on top of your head. And then use that to solve the next puzzle. And it's not like the game is tutorializing it per se with like a wall of text. It's like, here's this level. It's laid out in such a way that if you keep messing around and, picking at different concepts and different thoughts, you're going to figure out this new mechanic. They do this like 10 plus times, and it's like 3 to 4 hour game. And then I'm watching a stream from my buddy Steve Blinkum on the internet, and he found a lot of more secret stages. I happen to find like a couple of those when I'm playing, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of weird. I felt like they were kind of roadblocks for me, like they were like challenge rooms that were kind of secret and hidden, beyond the normal game. And he was playing them in there, and we're kind of like in there cheering him on. And this is one of those games I'll look back on fondly and just remember and be like, wow, what a friggin' video game. It's one that if you have an afternoon and you're a puzzle game fan and you like tinkering, you like to tinker to figure out what the next goal and objective and power is, this one is going to make you feel like Einstein. It's really well done. One of those games that is kind of unforgettable, and that's my number 9, man. Like every game on here is a banger, I promise you. So let's go ahead and jump into my number 8 here, which is Split Fiction. What is there to say? It's a Josef Fares game. We got Brothers, we got A Way Out, we got It Takes Two, and now we got Split Fiction. And this studio and this like creative team just keeps on iterating and making their, gameplay philosophy, their design philosophy of just, let's try a bunch of stuff. Let's give the players so much unique interactions that you can do in the split screen co-op fashion, to where like one character will be doing one thing, one per character will be doing another thing, but they both will feel like they're doing something interesting and something that's worth doing to get to the next area. Split Fiction is just gameplay design. Like it's pure gameplay design, pure creativity, and it's expensive because you could tell. Like It Takes Two felt a little more indie, right? It felt a little, it had a lot of production value. It was beautiful. It had okay voice acting, it had a decent story, but it looked beautiful. You could tell there was some EA budget in that. This game, Split Fiction, is take that budget and feeling of like the higher budget moments in It Takes Two and make an entire game out of that shiny, beautiful AAA vibe with a little bit of like indie can-do attitude and creativity. And that's what you get with Split Fiction. It's like 14, 15 hour game, 14 to 16, maybe something like that. You're going to have a great time. You're going to, enjoy the gameplay part. I will say my biggest criticism of this game and It Takes Two is the storyline is kind of, it is what it is. It's not something that you're going to write home about. It's fine for what it is, but that's not why you're here. You're here to see like the crazy gameplay mechanics, the interesting puzzle scenarios that they put you in with your co-op partner. And this one just blew me away and just stuck with me all year. And I cannot wait for whatever else they do next. Let's go into number 7 for something a little bit different, a little more particular. Promise Mascot Agency. So this is the studio that brought you and us Paradise Killer, which, to be honest, I never played Paradise Killer. I know it's a well-loved indie game. I know it's weird and unique. It has unique gameplay styles. But this one is even more weird, even more unique. So we got an open world collectathon platformer. First and foremost, that's probably about 50 to 60%. And then the other 40 to 50% is an entirely different gameplay system and thing that kind of works hand in hand. So you drive a K truck. You play. So let me set this up. You drive a K truck. I said that already, but you are Yakuza, down on his luck, loses a bunch of money. Your mob family, your Yakuza family, says, go to this old abandoned town that might be haunted and manage a mascot agency. And the thing that's interesting is mascots are like a character, like a species, I guess, or like a race in this universe. They are legitimate beings that exist, right? So the main character is Michi, and he's, down on his luck, like I said, and trying to make up for this big mistake he did for his Yakuza family by running this mascot agency. Like I said, they're like a whole different subspecies of, being in this universe. You play as Michi, and your right-hand girl is Pinky, who is literally like a full-size 6 foot tall, 5'8" tall, Pinky, like a pinky toe. And she's probably the best character in the story. You meet many different characters. You meet like a koala bear that has white substance all over his body, which, I think it says it's yam sauce or something. I'm like, yeah, I know what you're trying to do. It's not pervy or like, anything like that really. But that, they have a sense of humor. It's quirky and very Japanese, very anime. And this is the hardest game to explain. So your day-to-day looks like this. You go out in the town and you kind of collect things, talk to people. There's like trash on the street you can clean up, like these little temples you can like sweep. You're called the janitor, Michi is, and the janitor is his like Yakuza name. He's trying to rehabilitate himself by doing this, really, right? And as he's going through, when he opens up Promise Mascot Agency, he learns a lot about himself and about the world. And the way that's managed and things that ends up happening is you start meeting more mascots around the map that can basically go out and do mascot events for different businesses to kind of revitalize this town that really got screwed over when the mine had a big accident years ago, which you slowly uncover the story of, this town over the course of 20 hours and playing this game. So there's the other element besides driving this K truck, and the K truck's cool. You start getting different powers on it. You get like wings, you get like a boost that you can like boost across the map, grind on some rails. It's just really fun to play. The open world is one of my favorite open worlds of all time. And then on the other side, the other half of the game is this really interesting management system where you're managing these mascots that go out. Honestly, it's not unlike Dispatch in some respect, but it's way more deep than Dispatch, obviously. But I can feel the same vibe or energy, right, between the two. So you send the mascots out, you make some money, and you're trying to build up funds to pay back the Yakuza, to save the matriarch of your family, basically. Stories unfold, found family come together at the end, and it's a beautiful story that will get you choked up. You care about these characters. You really give a damn about the tofu that's crying in the sauna. Like, you really care about this guy, this tofu dude that's like 7 foot tall tofu that can't stop crying and has emotional issues, but you help him come to terms with that. through, like I said, found family and love and respect, and hard work. And that this game has so many themes and so many messages behind its goofy veneer. It has this veneer of like, wow, this is such a corny and weird and quirky and out there game. But deep down, you start to find the heart. You start pulling apart the heart of the game the chest of the game to reveal the heart that's beneath, right? The chest of it is just like this quirky, like, oh, this is kind of just weird and out there. And then you start getting the gameplay loop under your skin and you're like, man, this is like a very graphic way to explain this, right? But the more you unveil of this game, the more you see the heart of it, and the more you care about the characters, and the more you fall in love with this world, and the more you want to play. The whole open world part of it's kind of a checklist. You're checking things off. You're trying to complete a bunch of challenges, but when it comes down to it, Promise Mascot Agency is a game about family, and it's just fun, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and I just really had a blast with this. So, highly recommended. Solid number 7. Number 6 is Skate Story by Sam Ng. This game just came out not that long ago either. A lot of these you're going to find here near the top are not that old. Actually, I think we might be through most of the ones that are not that old. But anyway, the game came out recently. And Skate Story is a skateboarding game unlike any other skateboarding game. We're not in this world and universe to just make points, multipliers, get the biggest combos, grind off many things to jump down and do a revert into a manual, into a double kick flip, into a grind to jump off and go down a rail and do another revert up into a half pipe to do a 900 or something like that. We're not trying to make the biggest combo of all time. No. You play as a prismatic glass skater. So this is kind of like another genre mash thing. I think I'm getting to the point where I like just games that do something different. I think I just like to branch out, try different things. This one is really popular for a reason. It's a really fascinating game, really unique. So yeah, like I said, you play as this glass prismatic skater going through the 9 layers of hell, skateboarding all the way to the end of them to eat the moon. That's basic premise, and it's fire, man. This game blew me away from its presentation first and foremost. So we got just the craziest, most beautiful, unique looking environments that you're ever going to see in a game. Everything's like bigger. How do I describe the way this game looks? I'm trying to think in my head. It's very colorful. It's like, have you ever watched like those 80s synthwave? You're driving off into the sunset with just a bunch of vector things around your head. It's just like super like neon soaked, drenched with color and vibes. That's what this game is. But make it skateboarding, make it a little dark, but also extra beautiful at the same time. So what you're looking at is main areas. You're going to be doing these skateboarding challenges where you're basically just skateboarding to a gate. And as you do this, and as you get further down into the further layers of hell, I guess, I'm pretty sure that's where you're at. I'm pretty sure that's what the story is. It is. That's what the story is. As you go, you're learning more gameplay mechanics, like you'll learn the ollie, you'll learn how to grind, you'll learn how to kickflip, you'll learn how to do combo moves and things like that. That's the main thing. You're going to be going just down a hallway that has some obstacles. Skateboard down that hallway, and it's going to look cool. The music's going to be blasting. It's going to look really awesome. But there's more to it than that. But that little snippet there is where you're going to look at in a GIF or like a trailer or something like that. You're going to be like, wow, this game looks so stunning. It does such a good job with the lighting and the environment design, and the gameplay itself feels unlike any other game, like skateboarding game that's ever been created, because it's not really Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk, you hold down X, you let it go to do ollie, and then you just push triangle and you're grinding, and you can just keep on tapping buttons and make the craziest combos you possibly can. We've all been there. We've all played Tony Hawk. Skate, use the analog sticks to pop your skateboard up and do tricks and things like that. Different patterns for the analog sticks. This one uses different mechanics than you would expect. You use the triggers to do a lot of the tricks, and I like the way the actual skateboarding feels, because even though it's just crazy concept that you're this glass skater that shatters if you fall, you it has like this dolly cam, so like it kind of goes first person for a minute when you crash, and it just goes and it's like shatters, and it makes like this crazy noise, and it's so like debilitating for like a split second. Then it respawns you in like 2 seconds before you crash, and then you just do it again. It has really good checkpoints in that respect. But it has all these things, and then it has this gameplay system where as you like skateboard, the gravity is so felt as you're ollieing and doing grinds. It's not just push triangle and you magnetize into a rail. No, you got to line up that jump, land on that grind just right with your momentum. And this is the definition of like a flow state game. Once you start to learn the gameplay mechanics and the unique skateboarding elements of getting from point A to point B, and I know I described just basically the hallway levels. There are multiple different types of levels. There's also like a hub area where you can talk to characters, help them out. These characters are strange. They're kind of like, I think I heard, I'll mention Steve again. Heard Steve on his podcast, Polykill, talk about how it's kind of Suda 51 vibes and energy to all the characters. They're kind of like weird and stilted and not the normal type of characters you're going to see in an average video game. You're going to go talk to a skeleton, and he's just going to be saying these weird things that they're going to kind of make sense, but kind of not. But it kind of works for the environment and the weirdness of like this game and this atmosphere in this world that they have built. And as you skate your way through this game and you learn the story that's told in these very beautiful and flowery, poetic moments, you start to realize what the story is trying to tell you, and you can glean what you can from like these poems. They're very like open for interpretation. There's a lot of different things you can, read into when it comes to that. But as you get to the end of the game, it kind of like comes to a head, and there's a big moments at the end, and it's just beautifully told. Gameplay looks amazing. This is one of the best soundtracks of the year. Just beautiful music, just heart-pounding, pulse-pounding music as you're skating around this gorgeous environment as this crazy-looking skater. It's just a very memorable experience and very much worth playing. So check out Skate Story if any of that sounds good, or if any of this gameplay that's been playing over my head here looks good. But damn, it was one of those games I'm going to look back on and be like, hell yeah. And the creator of the game, like I said, Sam Eng, he is making a photo mode for this game. And oh my God, I cannot wait to jump in and take a bunch of cool pictures in that universe. Such a cool game. So unique. My number 5 favorite game of the year. So if you guys are, have listened to my show and stuff, my podcast and stuff, my top 10 is different here than others because I had to leave room for a couple of these AAA games. So I will say number 5 is the most AAA game on my list today. Number 5. I had my hand the wrong direction there. Number 5 is my most AAA game. It is Death Stranding 2. What is there to say about Death Stranding 2? Besides that, it's more Death Stranding 1. And it's a lot better from a gameplay experience. And maybe not as good from a storytelling experience. So I have complicated feelings for this game because the first Death Stranding game, I thought the gameplay systems of it were, if you guys haven't played these games, and they're huge games, so I'm sure most people know what the gameplay loop is. You are Sam Porter Bridges, and you are delivering packages basically in this post-apocalyptic world that has been destroyed by like this basically cataclysmic event with the plane of death or the realm of death, basically. And there are these beings called beached things, and the beach is kind of like the afterlife in this universe. It's just a really complicated thing, but there's these like entities called BTs, which are beach things. And then you also have these fetuses, these that come from mothers that are it's like a living fetus in a tank that's on the chest of these of the porter. It's just so out there, the story. I'm not going to get into that too much, but the first one had a pretty, the story is crazy and out there, but the story was pretty easy to follow. It had beats, boom, 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 boom. Maybe a little bit too much explainer. That's a Kojima staple. He loves to just like write so much explanation on the universe, have so much dialogue, just exposition dumps all the time, telling you what's going on and what this means and what that means and what this means and what that means. But behind the scenes, or not even behind the scenes, but the main part of the game is this interesting and unique delivery mechanic and delivery game, right? So you got this delivery game where you play as Sam and you're delivering these packages, and you have to manage weight, you got to manage distribution, you got to manage this rain that can destroy things called timefall. You got to manage the BTs, like I mentioned. And they took this idea of managing all this stuff. And the first game was a lot of fun. Like, it was well done. It was very bare bones, especially, there was a lot to it, but the sequel adds so much layers to it that the first one starts to feel bare bones in retrospect. So they basically took that gameplay idea of all these, differing systems, weight management, vehicle management, getting deliveries from A to B, and kind of maxed it out with ideas. I don't know what else they could add to this game to give you more tools and interesting things to try and different experiments to do these these deliveries. Because it's not just, I have these, you always see the picture of the Death Stranding guy with like 25,000 packages on his back, like lumbering, using the left and right trigger to kind of walk back and forth and balance. They take that and they kind of like extrapolate gameplay concepts to the point where you're kind of like, oh my God, I don't know what else they could think of to make this even more interesting. And that's the best part of these games, is just, okay, I have a mission. I got to put out this fire. I got to pick up this package, and I got to take it over here. They changed the location of this from the US to Australia. So you're mostly in Australia in this game. A really fun and unique place to be in, especially in a post-apocalyptic setting, because there's different climates they can do, new animals they can have in the environment. Like, obviously, you can have kangaroos, and you can save kangaroos and things like that. And you're just expanding this thing called the chiral network by connecting up different points in the map to basically make this living, breathing internet, which is, like I said, the story is out there. And the actual act of playing this game is so soothing and cathartic and interesting. There's so many different layers, so many unique things that you start just getting lost in the weeds trying to figure out the best way to manage this mission, get to the next area, level up this camp, get it to the next tier, get your version of Sam and your version of the world as best as you can, the most connected as you can, to help these people as best as you can. You start becoming part of that world. So here comes my biggest criticism of the game. Doesn't take it down too many notches. Honestly, the gameplay and the story of this game is kind of secondary to me at this point, because the gameplay is, the gameplay is good. The story is kind of the detrimental part. So we have just too much story in this game, I'll say. I know that's maybe a weird thing to say, but this game is just too much sometimes. And it has a lot of like reveals that you see coming from like 1,000 miles away. And you're like, okay, I've been predicting that's going to happen since like 3 hours into the game. Now we're 27 hours in and you're revealing it to me. doesn't really feel very impactful. And then the characters are very corny, very cheesy. And there's like this third act. I actually just legitimately hated part of the third act. There was just like a couple of scenes where I put the controller down and stopped playing for a couple weeks because I just did not enjoy the reveals. Like the story in this has good beats. Like, I won't say that it's all bad or anything. I just feel like it stops it from being that 10 out of 10 masterpiece, best game of the year. It just gets a little bit too up its own ass, a little too convoluted. And then the characters and the corniness and the jokes and the random like dance numbers and humor and things like that. Sure, let's have a little bit of fun. I love Promise Mascot Agency, and it's quirky and fun and out there, but it just doesn't work sometimes in this game, and it just kind of takes me out of the experience of this world where I'm trying to survive and connect everybody and be that person that is the shining beacon of hope for this civilization that is basically crumbling underneath this depressive state of this death onslaught. Like the death is basically attacking everybody. I'm supposed to be the guy that connects everybody, that stops that. And having all this corny jokes and like this corny humor in story that doesn't make a lot of sense, that's just too much and not edited down well, kind of took me out of it a little bit. And that's not me trying to hate on the game. That's just my criticism of this game in general. And that's why it's not my like number one, because if they landed that story and narrative element on top of this gameplay system, because this gameplay system is like a 15 out of 10. It's like one of my favorite gameplay systems of the year, or maybe ever. I just thought that it was so soothing and just interesting and thought-provoking and just fun and harrowing to take these missions and these packages across the world and connect everything and build up the infrastructure of the world. I just thought that was so fascinating and well done. Like, I really love that element to this game. But then it gets to the end of the game and they had these corny ass reveals with these characters. And I'm like, bro, like, come on. What are you doing? Like, this is not analogous. It doesn't line up with this amazing gameplay system. And I think as much as I love Kojima, I always love his games. Like, I love this game. I just have to throw the criticism out there that maybe it was a little too much Kojima this time. Maybe he should have reined himself in just a little bit to give us something that wasn't so like just corny. Like, that's the only word I could come up with. Like, some of these reveals were just corny. And then we have Norman Reedus, bless his heart. Like, he's a good actor when he gets the material, but sometimes he's not. He gets the material and he just falls flat on his ass. And there's a couple of scenes where there's like the highest emotional beats where everybody is outpacing him by 1,000-fold for his acting. And you're like, bro, like, come on, rein it in. Just live up to their acting. It's like, there's this person, I'm not spoiling any story beats on this, just to be honest. You guys probably know what this is if you played the game. But there's this beat where this character is sobbing, just, oh my God, at him. And he just goes, looks at her, just straight face, like, has no emotion. He's like, oh, that's sad. Basically, he's like, oh, that's sad. Like, it's just, but the narrative struggle for me on this game, like, my feeling, like the conflicted feeling of like the story that just really didn't land with me, to be honest. It had some good beats. It had some good messages. It had good ideas. There are some really awesome scenes I will not forget with some great acting from Troy Baker and others. Elle Fanning is awesome in this. But yeah, the story is whatever. The game is so damn good. Like the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, that it just surpasses all of that and makes me that kind of just goes behind me, and I'm staring in the face of like the Australian wilderness, and I just want to build the coolest roads and the best infrastructure and deliver all these packages and be the best porter I can be. And that's what this game does well, and that's why it's my number 5. Number 4 is the opposite end of the spectrum for gameplay storytelling. It's Citizen Sleeper 2. So I started 2025 playing Citizen Sleeper 1, kind of hoping I would get to Citizen Sleeper 2, like when it released, like a few weeks after I played the first one, because this came out early in the year. Didn't get to it till like early in in December, mid December, something like that. Love the hell out of this game. This game blew me away. So the kind of premise of Citizen Sleeper, just like the story of both of the games, but this one's in particular, you play as a sleeper, which is basically a robot that has the consciousness of a person that sold a copy of their being to a corporation to put inside of sleepers, quote unquote, or like I said, cyborgs or robots. And you play as one of those characters that is trying to basically get away from the corporation and find its way in this world that doesn't really want it to be a part of that world, right? And this game's really fascinating because the first game, you are basically on a space station and you kind of have like your home base. That's a space station. And you go out and do some missions here and there, different areas, or, send people out. I think you go to like one other location. In this sequel, it's more about your ship and your crew that you bring onto the ship. And then you go to I think it's about a dozen locations or so, give or take. And it's a universe or like a galaxy spanning story about found family again, which, obviously there's a theme of stories I like. This one really resonated with me quite a bit. And you're going point to point, helping people with their issues. It's very story based. The game is like half and half story, like basically visual novel style, where you're reading a lot of text and dialogue and making decisions on what direction you want to go. The other half is kind of a tabletop-like game with dice, and you're trying to roll dice to basically get checks based on like stats to answer and solve puzzles and create solutions for problems that come in front of you inside the story here. And I love this game because you really do get a feeling of identity from your main character in this game that I found very fascinating and very it's thought-provoking. The idea of like identity, selfhood, just the idea of self. Who are you? What does it mean to exist and be a person, right? Both of these games, the first one and this one, really ask that question quite a bit, and it really feels like that from a gameplay situation too, because you got these dice rolls where you're building your character and your stats, right? You got you put another point into like engineering or whatever, and you start building your version of the sleeper to solve these problems that come at you. And usually you don't really have enough resources or enough dice rolls to get through this thing cleanly. It's never really a clean situation, which makes the world feel very lived in, very realistic, very cold and unforgiving. But then you find these people and you start kind of recruiting people. For me, when I'm playing this, my sleeper, my personal sleeper, which, you start kind of latching on, giving, like your own mind and your own thoughts and feelings. You kind of like use that to make choices in this game, right? So my sleeper was a guy or a person, really. It is open for petition on gender and things like that. That's not important here. But basically my sleeper was one that would just accept anybody and their faults, and he was quick to forgive. But sometimes when you're quick to forgive, that can bite you in the ass. And that comes into play so many times in my version of the story. And as you're going through this world, reading all this dialogue, it's so beautiful, man. The way it's written, it's like the most flowery and just perfectly worded version of like a story set in this like stark and dark and cold and unforgiving space. And the way they describe everything throughout throughout the entire storyline is just, it paints a picture. Like, you're looking at literally a character still with like maybe a name next to it as they're talking to you, but in my mind's eye, I'm seeing this the most beautiful story maybe told all year in video games, told through just big blocks of text and my choices and some dice rolls that are affected by these elements that start to bear down on the character and basically cause stress. So the dice elements are pretty interesting in this. They add like another layer to Citizen Sleeper 1. Citizen Sleeper 1, the dice could break and you lose dice and you got to heal and things like that, right? In this game, you can start building up stress. And as the stress starts to build up, your dice can either break or also they can glitch. So if the dice is glitched, it can only roll like a 1 or a 6. And I'm literally saying they're actual dice. There's like 5 dice on the top of the screen, and you place a dice or a die into like a skill check of some type. Let's just say, there's a panel on a ship that needs to be fixed, basic example. And I have an engineering high skill. I have a 4 roll dice. I throw that into the slot. I'm probably going to be okay, get either a neutral or positive outcome from that. Occasionally, there's a chance that I might not. So there's the percentage chance of the dice rolls to go good are based on your skills, and goes from there. So if you have a dice that can only roll 1 or 5, what are you going to do? You have a 20% chance, or it's 1 or 6, but it's only 20% chance for 6, and it's 80% chance for 1. You're probably going to fail that check because the dice are glitched out. So you have to manage your stress, and you got to manage, eating and sleeping correctly and taking breaks in the middle of missions. Otherwise, you are going to be struggling with resources, and it starts to feel like, oh, I am surviving out here with these characters and with my sleeper and my crew, and I'm trying to solve this big issue, this huge issue, this huge circumstances. These things are so high concept, so out there, and I'm just a scrappy crew of 5 or 6 people or whatever it is. And we're trying our best out here, That's really what it feels like. We're trying our best, man. We're doing our best out here. And it really is a journey. It really is a journey. And it's so harrowing when you get to that point where you're scraping by, you're clawing your way out from this story moment. And you have this moment where I get the perfect dice roll. I say the right thing. And then I have the canon moment for my playthrough that just makes me feel like I'm the hero, or damn, I barely scraped by, but hey, that person survived. They might be on their last legs, but damn, they survived. We all got out of that. I don't know how, I don't know why, but we got out of that, That's what this game feels like, and it does that so well so many times where you don't really feel like the game is beating you over the head with failure. It's the little failures that you get here and there kind of stack up and just build the story and canon of your playthrough and your story. And it's just perfectly done. I feel like it's so balanced and everything's written well. Even if you fail and you fall on your head and you mess up everything, the story still turns out well, or at least that failure isn't the end of the world. Usually there are some that will matter more than others, but that's your story, and that's what these games do in spades. And I'm going to remember this just space opera, this huge story that I went through with my team and my crew. And by the time I was on that last story beat and they're telling it all and they're just kind of tying a bow around this, it just made me just cry. Tears of joy, sadness that it was over. And then, just happy that I went through this with my crew. It's just a beautiful story and one of the best games of the year. Highly recommended. Even if this isn't your style of game, I recommend trying it out on a service like Game Pass, if so, or get it on sale. $20. This game's probably worth full price. This is probably a $70 game in my heart. This game is so damn good. Check it out. Citizen Sleeper 2, my number 4. My number 3 favorite game of 2025 is Wanderstop. It's a farming game, simulation game, cozy game from the creators of Stanley Parable. So you don't know what to expect. I remember seeing the trailer for this, like maybe at Game Awards or something like that. One of the 7,000 events we get a year. And I saw it. I was like, I don't know. It looks cool. And then it just seemed like it had some kind of like horror elements or like some kind of creepy factor to it. It showed like this girl, man, in a cozy tea tavern, and there was something below the surface. I'll say that it really doesn't ever get to that point where you're like, it's a horror game, but the game itself tells a story of a fighter, a warrior person who just burns herself out. She gets so burned out on being the person that everybody relies on. So she ends up in this cozy tavern, this tea shop, basically, with this guy. He's chilling. He's like, hey, why don't we make some tea? Why don't we take a minute? Kick back, make some tea. Let's take care of some people. And through the acts of service, through the act of taking a moment to reflect, taking a moment to pretty much put work behind you for a minute and just do something for yourself or do something for others to better your life and who you are as a person. That's pretty much the main themes of this game. So the actual gameplay looks like this. Each day you'll see some kind of straggler or customer come over to the tea shop in the middle of the woods. And it's a very fantasy themed woods. We don't know how deep the fantasy elements are. There is possibly some magic in the world, something like that. It kind of feels like that. Kind of feels Tolkien in some ways, right? So they come in. They'll tell you some stuff about their lives and that they want some type of refreshment. And some people might just be like, yeah, I want some black tea and that's it. Very basic, right? Or somebody might be like, oh, I want something that makes me feel, not so stressed out. Or I need something that makes me feel calm, but also something that'll wake me up, And then you have a recipe book that has some materials and, ingredients that maybe there's something that has some natural caffeine in it, and then something that is soothing too. So you'll go through and you'll grow some plants in your garden. You go inside the actual tea shop, and it's just like this big, very like steampunk looking tea mechanism to make the tea. You mix up the tea, make the tea for the characters, and there's a bunch of storylines that happen from multiple characters that you start talking to, and you learn about their backstory. Basically, it's kind of just one of those games where it'll make you think about your own personal life, and you kind of reflect yourself onto the main character quite a bit. I know I did personally, where she is struggling with, I got to be the best. I got to be number one. I got to be the savior. I want everybody to look to me to solve the problems of this world. But she needs some time for herself to know who she is, to learn to love herself so that she can help others. And that's pretty much what this entire storyline ends up being about, through really great dialogue and just, it's a cozy game. It's a cozy game. This really is, it takes a lot for me to really get into a game where it's like, oh, I'm farming, like I said earlier in the video here, is I love Minecraft, I love Terraria and, things like that, where it's like I'm building up like a settlement, kind of getting some farms going, trying to get better and better materials, trying to level up my guy, get little, better armor, better weapons, better, food, better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It has a little bit of that, but that's not the point of the game. The point of the game is just being the best person you can be for these people that need to take a minute and learning to love yourself by taking a minute yourself. And it's all told through just really cozy, fun management gameplay that I just really enjoyed. It was just a lot of fun to play. And then the storyline really captivated me. And then it's all told with this musical, feeling in the background by C418. There we go. There's a Minecraft connection again, same composer. And it's just a unique take on this genre that honestly, I feel like I'm a better person for playing it. I know that's a big thing to say, but by the end of the story and seeing it through and talking to all these characters and being in this world, it's just powerful, and it makes you feel something. It makes you feel right in here, you feel good when you're done playing this game. So it's just this one was my game of the year for so long. There's two more that just barely eked it out, but this one was my game of the year for so much of the year because it just hit me so hard, and I just related to the main character. I understand, girl, where you're coming from, and I feel like a lot of the lessons this game teaches, through the gameplay and the message of taking a beat, taking a moment to rest, to fill your cup before you fill other people's cup, because after a while you're going to be empty, like, who are you if all you're doing is pleasing others and doing things for others? Maybe take some time for yourself and then, help fill other people's cups and listen to people, and then take that in, internalize that, become a better person yourself, and take a moment to grow and get some R&R and rest, and, become better on the other side of all this stress that you put on yourself. That's pretty much what the story is about. It's a beautiful message, beautiful game. It's not for everybody, I'll say. Like, if you're not really into cozy games, it might not hit for you, but something about it, just the message, the gameplay, the story, the runtime. I don't think it's a very long game. I think it's 10 hours or less. Very doable in the amount of time. It's just a beautiful game, and one I won't soon forget. So that's why number 3 is Wonderstop. Next up is my number 2 game of the year for 2025. This is, if I was going to do categories, if I was doing, best surprise or something right now, this would be my number 1 on my best surprise of the year. It is Baby Steps. Yeah. This game could have went any way. Like, I didn't know what to expect from this game because so I've tried getting over it. So this is a Bennett Foddy game. He made Quap. His whole thing is he likes to make challenging games that have unique gameplay styles that are hard to master, and the goal is to kind of piss you off a little bit from the actual gameplay systems. They're a little frustrating, a little hard to figure out, but when you overcome that obstacle and you learn the gameplay systems, you get that eureka moment that, oh, I just conquered this impossible thing. So it takes that concept and expands it a million times. So this is like easily a 30-hour game if you do everything in it. But let's rewind back. Let's talk about like what the gameplay systems is and like the story is and everything. So Baby Steps, I'm sure most people here have probably seen what this game looks like in action. You're probably looking at it right now on the screen. But you play as this dude with the biggest badonkadonk you've ever seen. I don't think I've ever said badonkadonk in like 10 plus years, a decade plus, but here we are. The biggest booty you've ever seen in your face, jiggle physics and everything. In a onesie, dirty, sweaty, probably stinky onesie. And what you're doing is you're walking up a mountain. That's the main gameplay. You're trying to get to the top of this mountain. You're just trucking your way up there. Sounds easy, right? But no, it's not. It's far from easy. So the main way the gameplay mechanics work for this game is you got L2 and R2 triggers, and then you got your analog sticks to move your guy. Left. So the more you depress the actual the triggers, the further out his foot will kick out. And then right and left will kind of lean that foot forward, right? The analog sticks. So basically the whole thing is you're walking with this very unique, kind of stilted at first walking mechanic where you're holding the trigger down, flicking the stick up, moving your foot forward, landing your foot, trying to get that momentum going left, right, left, right, left, right, like a rhythm game or something like that. And what ends up happening is your biggest obstacle and your biggest fight in this game. There's no boss fights per se in this game, but I would say, and I would argue that there are certain areas of this game that the terrain is a boss fight because you are trying your best to scale a mountain, no hands, just feet, bare feet in the wilderness, just trying to find your footing and get this top heavy dude to the top of this mountain. But that's not really the thing that really made me fall in love with the game. Besides the fact that I really enjoyed the gameplay of this, at first, it really frustrated me. The first 20, 30 minutes of it, I'm like smashing my face into mud multiple times, just miserable. But slowly you learn how to understand this unique control method. And I think that it's rage-worthy in the fact that it's hard to get your mind around it at first. But once you start getting the muscle memory, it's more of a challenge of let's get better at this unique control style as you encounter new things in the environment. Like, for example, there's a whole area that's basically a giant sandcastle-y and sandy area. And some parts of the sand are more slippery than others, and you gotta figure that out. I do like about this game that you do fall on your ass or face, or your badonk-donk. I said ass already, but you know what I mean. You'll fall. Yeah, you're gonna fall a lot. But usually, I will say there's some exceptions to the rule, but usually it's when you're being a little overzealous or trying to do things that are just a little bit off the beaten path that they want to tempt you with. You usually don't fall very far, is what I'm saying. You'll fall down, but you're not going to lose too much progress, usually. But sometimes there'll be like hats or fruits that you can collect throughout the world where they're just like on the edge of a sheer cliff. You can do it. Don't fall. If you fall, you're going to lose 20, 30 minutes of progress. That's up to you. And there's a lot of that in the game, it's like little extra challenges on the way up to the top of the mountain. And there are tons of them. There's probably dozens of them. There's probably some I never even seen. There's probably storylines I never seen in characters I never interacted with. But, as part of a game like this, it's a big open world game. There's no map. They don't tell you where to go. You got to figure it out yourself. There's even times when there's a character named Jim that you talk to, and he's like, hey, man, I get you a map. They even pop up a little map on the side of your screen, and he's like, no, I got it. Nah. So this is another game. So this is basically the other side of the coin for WonderStop. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if WonderStop is telling you to take a moment for yourself, internalize what you do for the world, and then get some rest and build yourself back up to become a better version of yourself. This one is the person who's pushing themselves to the brink and never asking for help, finally giving in and overcoming the things to the best of his ability, but finally being able to just take a breath and go, hey, can you help me? And that's basically the main premise of this game. So basically, like I said, if WonderStop is like the cozy, like, oh yeah, this is chill, makes you feel good, self fulfilling game that makes you feel good, and, has a good message. Baby Steps is the one that's like, this is the one that's a little darker, a little bit nihilistic. It has like the crazy Adult Swim humor. Like there are cutscenes with standing up donkey guys, like they're like humanoid donkeys, and their dicks are out. So like legitimately, like at the beginning of the game, it's like, hey, do you want to censor this game? I'm like, no, why would I need to censor this game? I didn't know what was to come. But it's I think the whole point of that, the absurdist nature of like the cutscenes and all the like dialogue in it is, I know they probably had a concept for what they wanted to say, but most of it is just improvised. It's very it feels very on the fly. Like, let's just have a discussion and just try to be funny, for 10 minutes. A lot of the discussions here, it has that. I feel like I use this a lot when I'm talking about like absurd things, like absurd media, but it's kind of like you're in a hotel room, mid 2000s, you're flipping through the channels and you land on, it's like 1:43 in the morning, and you land on Adult Swim, and the craziest, weirdest thing you've ever seen is on there, and you have no idea what it was. You're not even sure if you saw it the next day. You're like, did I actually watch that? That is pretty much what all the cutscenes are in Baby Steps. Like, they're all just weird, out there, bizarre, crazy, like just the most weird. I said weird like 7 times, but you know what I mean? It's just like kind of like obscure story and like conversations that still find a way to have meaning and be profound in the respect, like, hey, this guy is trying his best. He's struggling to be a better version of himself, that he never asked for help. He's literally mounting this entire mountain, like climbing this mountain without any help, or barely having the ability to do it. He's just barely able to move his feet in an awkward fashion to get the right angle on your left foot arch, to get some push up to get to the next area and put the right foot up and over and kind of like launch yourself up on top of a hill. Like, it's a weird game, but it has a big heart, a big gushy heart. It really cares about the main character, even though they like make fun of him so much. It starts to be like kind of one of those things, like you can overcome anything on your own, but if you ask for help, that's when it's just such a basic story, really, when you break it down. But you can overcome almost anything on your own, but asking for help is not something to frown on or put your thumbs down at. It's not a negative thing, because he wouldn't have struggled so much if he did ask for help, right? And besides that, the gameplay itself is a unique and fascinating gameplay system that's unlike anything out there. And ever since I rolled credits on this, I want to go back and just play some of the challenges I missed and see if I can, overcome them, because there are some tough areas in this game that will kick your ass. And that's the point. It's a rage game in some respect, but it also respects your time a bit, I would say. I know some people are raising their eyebrow, but the thing is there are always, I wouldn't even say usually, there's probably a couple areas where there aren't alternate paths, but maybe I missed them. But usually there's an alternate path if you're struggling with an area. So say you keep falling in a spot, it's like, well, maybe skip that spot, go around the mountain to the another area, and maybe that's this other challenge, it's not platforming, like this movement challenge area won't kick your ass as much as this area on the other side of the mountain. Try that out, and it's the way the game doesn't really lead you up the mountain and you just naturally find your way up there. It's just really well done open world design too. So yeah, it's just a unique game. I loved playing it, and I also hated playing it at times, but it was part of the journey, to get to the top and to become better at this weird, awkward gameplay system. And I don't know, it's just an unforgettable game. I really, it's just special to me. It just really grabbed me at the right time or something. Like, it's just felt good to me, and I'm glad it exists, and it's one I'll revisit in the future. So that's why Baby Steps is my number 2 game of the year. Last but not least, my game of the year will be very unsurprising to most. If you know me and you've talked to me, you've heard me on shows, or you talk to me on Discord or DM me on whatever, or text me. Well, if you know me and you interact with me, I love this game. My game of the year is Hollow Knight Silksong. Woo! It's my game of the year. What is there to say about Silksong that hasn't been said a million times? So last year, let's rewind back to last year. I played Prince of Persia, which I mentioned at the top, and that kind of like Prince of Persia Lost Crown. It really got me feeling just like into this genre. Like I've never been really much for the entire gated exploration Metroidvania thing. Like my like interpretation and my feeling for the genre was always like, why do I want to get lost just to backtrack because I got a new power? Like I don't like that gameplay system. So I played Prince of Persia, and I was like last year, and I was like, oh, shit, this is my game of the year. That was my favorite game last year. I was like, damn, this game ruled. I loved it. And then I was like, you know what? Let's play Hollow Knight. So last year I played Hollow Knight for the first time. I never really played much of it. I tried the first area out a couple times. Kind of like felt lost. Felt like I was so weak. I didn't know what to do. Got my ass kicked by a couple bosses, and I was like, I'm good. Last year, though, I played it, and I was like, all right, I'm giving it some time. I'm going to learn this game. I gave it some respect, some time, and really got into the gameplay systems, learned the gem system, learned how to, do the combat, learn how to dodge. I fought Hornet, I fought all the, bosses. There's still some I want to do in that game specifically, but I was like, you know what? I love this game, and I cannot wait for the sequel. And it was built up in my head from years of people talking about it up until that point, right? Like everyone's like, oh my God, Silk Song, when's it coming out? Silk Song, Silk Song, Silk Song, like all the time. Every event, everyone was building it up like, oh my God, we cannot wait, Silk Song, like everyone is like freaking out about it, like so hyped. And then when it wasn't at like a Nintendo Direct, everyone would be like, that was sucked, there was no Silk Song, like everybody will be like so like down on everything. Like it's basically, another game I've been waiting for literally since I was a teenager, right? It's like Half-Life 3, right? But less years. If Half-Life 3 happens, I feel like that'll be like the biggest event ever in video games, bar none. But this felt like that, because it was 7-ish years, 8 years that everyone was waiting for the sequel. This highly anticipated sequel after this really huge game that came from a couple of people, just a handful of people, and it broke out. Everybody loved it. It was so well done. Like it was a beautiful world. It had great gameplay systems. It had fun platforming challenges. It had tough as hell boss fights. It had an interesting storyline. It had a unique, fascinating art style. Like great music. It had everything. What are they going to do for a sequel? Well, they're going to one up most of those things, or they're at least going to match it. So what I came away from Silk Song feeling, right? I played this game a lot. I played through Act 1. I think that was like 30-40 hours. I loved most of it at first, like I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm having a good time. Hornet controls amazing. The music's awesome. I love this new like beautiful 4K 120 hertz, just gorgeous version of this world, like this and graphic style that, started in Hollow Knight. And then we have this new character that has such a nimble and fast way that she moves throughout the world. And she's like no nonsense. She's like a badass, right? And the way she moves, she's like, it shows her confidence, right? As she gets more powers, she gets more, you feel more confident as a player, and it feels like it echoes the character as well. And as you're exploring this entire world, you just start to discover new things. And then I'm talking to my buddies. I'm like, oh my God, what about this? Did you guys find this? It's like, whoa, you didn't fight that boss? I fought that boss. What the hell? That boss kicked my ass. How come you got to skip it? You know what I mean? And then it started to be like, oh, so what build are you doing? Because this game introduced like a gear system where you can change your build and your move style. And everybody had their own opinion on what's the best tool to use and what's the best build to use for this boss fight. What's the best path to get to this boss, And then people complained and won't stop complaining about the difficulty. Yes, that's part of the game, but it's a sequel building upon the first game. And I think the expectation from the devs is, I know they say it's kind of separate, like it's its own thing, but I feel like for the skill level you need, it's almost like necessary to play the first game and kind of feel out that game and learn what this style of Metroidvania wants from you, because I feel like Silksong and Hollow Knight both have their kind of own unique like leg and feeling and just general gameplay uh, design pathos, I guess, for what they expect from what these games are going to be, right? So when I went in Silksong, I was like, oh yeah, I just played Hollow Knight last year. It still kicked my ass, guys. This game's hard. It's one of the hardest games I've probably ever played, but it was rewarding. It was so rewarding. Like, I loved every boss fight for the most part, except for one, which is the swamp area. Won't get too much into it in case people haven't played into all that. But like the big ass frog, that guy. Oh my god, screw that guy. But I feel like any game like this, you're gonna have a boss or an area you just do not like to go through, and that was mine in this. The rest of it, I was like, yeah, I'm chill. And then they also had like a lot of things that people just like to complain about, in this game. I think that there was just so much buildup, right? This game had years and years and years and years of buildup. Like, this is going to be the best Metroidvania they've ever experienced. There's going to be no flaws. I mean, come on. There's going to be some flaws. Like, there's going to be some freaking flaws in this game. Like, it's not going to be perfect. Like, what do you expect? Like, it's not going to be perfect. I like it, the imperfection in this game. Like, maybe some of the design decisions I wouldn't have done personally. Maybe, honestly, this might be controversial, but if they put in like an easier mode or a more accessible mode for this game, I feel like this would be number one for more people. And I feel like, yeah, I know that goes against the intentions of the character, not the character, but the people who made the game. It goes against their whole design philosophy, blah, 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 blah. No, like, come on. Let's make this more. I think that's my biggest criticism for the game. I think it's just impossible for everybody to enjoy it as much as I did. I would say that's my biggest complaint from the game. And there are times in this game that it feels a little unfair, like straight up unfair, when you're in areas for different reasons. Like, there is this notable area in High Halls, and I always talk about it because it was the area I struggled with probably the most out of the entire game. And so there are occasionally, instead of boss fights, you'll get like waves of enemies, kind of like a gauntlet challenge. You get like 3 to 4 waves of enemies, maybe a little mini boss at the end. And then that opens up a new area. Or, once you defeat that little gauntlet, you don't have to fight it again. And it kind of like opens up the path to a new spot that you haven't been to before. And there is this skill check room in High Halls that's 11 waves. So you do 5 waves, you get to the 5th wave, and there are one of this big bad that just starts spamming crap at you. He's so hard to beat. You beat him, you're like, oh, hell yeah, I beat him. Sweet. Nope, you're not done. You got 6 more waves. And then by the time you get to the 6th wave, there is 2 of those guys that you have to fight. It's just like, oh my God, why? Why'd you do this? This feels like a boss rush in the middle of your game or near the end of like the quote unquote normal playthrough of the game, right? Before you discover there's a whole area and like a whole new thing you can discover in like another act of the game, which is kind of secret and hidden, and that's brutal and challenging. Anyway, but that part really kicked my ass, and there was a part in this playthrough, and I spent like, I don't know, this is the game I played probably the most this year. I think I spent almost 80 hours total, like between Xbox and Steam Deck and just playing it. And I still didn't beat Act 3, like the secret third act. I just put so much time into this game, just exploring every little nook and cranny. It's a world that I wanted to see more of, and I wanted to find everything in, talk to all the little cool little crazy characters. They're all cute, adorable. All of them have little conversation things. You got Sherma and all the characters that you see like people do fan art of. They're loved and well loved for a reason, because the writing is there. Like, the world feels lived in. The characters feel like they are their own characters. They're not just NPCs walking from point A to point B in one area of the map. There's a couple like that, obviously, to feel the world out. But as you do things, you beat bosses, unlock new areas, get new powers, new world events happen. the locations change, so it's worth backtracking to different areas as you explore and do different things, because that character you might have talked to 2 hours ago might not be there. He might be in a different zone, or you might move the flea caravan to a new area, or it's an ever moving and ever like alive. I'm trying to explain how it feels. It feels alive. The world feels alive and lived in, and like there's actual like realistic, quote unquote realistic, it's a bug world, right? But it feels like it's an actual world that you're a part of, and I loved being in that world, even if it felt oppressive at times. The times where it felt oppressive, I think add to that feeling of being Hornet in this impossible scenario that she's in, trying to overcome all these incredible challenges and be like this savior of the world that really connects everybody together and gives them hope. And there's a story there that's very beautiful and powerful, on top of having this gameplay that's just smooth and refined and just really well done. That does have some imperfections I can criticize here and there, if I really want to. But when I'm looking back on this game, I don't really think about the fact that, it's annoying that tools are based upon a depletable resource. That's really annoying. Right? Stuff like that, that's annoying. And then some bosses being able to hit you for 2 hits when you just, touch their toe, as your character, you barely tap them and you get 2 shells of your 2 masks knocked off of your life pool. That's annoying too. Stuff like that's really annoying when you're playing, and in the moment it can be frustrating. But when you overcome these obstacles and you beat the bosses and you see this world change and evolve, and you learn the story and you become the best Hornet that you can be, it just doesn't feel like any other game out there, and it's gonna be the game of the year for me. I feel like even if I did finish like Clair Obscure and anything like that, I would probably still think about that game fondly. I'm gonna enjoy that game when I finish it in the next month or 2 here. But Silk Song is just one of those games where it's an all-timer for me. Like, I'm gonna be thinking about this game in 20 years. Like, I loved Silk Song. I will say, overall quality level, I think Hollow Knight might edge it out. Like, I've said this before, I might like it a little more at times. Like, if you ask me tomorrow, I'll say I like Silk Song less or more. Like, they're kind of like on the same plane. They're trying to do 2 different things, but also the same thing at the same time. I don't know. I'm just rambling now because I've been doing this for almost 2 hours, but I really, really enjoyed this game. It's my favorite of the year. I love everything about it. It does everything I love in a game. It has great gameplay, interesting mechanics, really fun characters, a world I want to be in and experience and look at and just kind of like dive deeper in and discover new things in. I just loved this game, and they nailed it for me. And this is like a masterpiece game for me. And like, the thing is like, no game, even my favorite games of all time, like, they're going to have flaws. This game has flaws. Every game has flaws, but the flaws are so minute in the whole grand scheme of how much I love this game that it didn't really deter me from giving it my game of the year honors. And that's it. That's my game of the year for 2025. One of my favorite games I've played in probably the last decade. I know that's crazy to say, but I love this game, and I will never forget my experience in my first playthrough through it. And I left just a little bit for me to kind of like, tinker with. I'm in the late game secret act, that you have to like do a bunch of like stuff to get to. I have a save just sitting there waiting for me to get back into the action and kick some bosses' asses. It's such a good ass game. My game of the year this year, 2025, is Hollow Knight Silk Song. Thank you for watching this video. I want to do just really quick before we round out the year and I do anything else. I don't know if I'll make any other videos or anything on this channel this year. This might be the only one. Who knows? I just kind of just make videos when I feel like it, but I want to do some resolutions really quick, just run them down for 2026. My main goals for the year for gaming is to continue playing games that interest me. Like, just kind of, that's obvious. Most people do that anyway. But I want to keep on enjoying video games like I did this year. I feel like I really got to a flow state where I'm like, getting into a bunch of games and just like living in them and not feeling rushed and just enjoying them and not worrying about getting to the next one or trying to hit credits or blah, blah, blah. No, I'm in this world, just loving it. It just reminds me of playing Metaphor Refantazia. I'm like, that game like never ended. It's like 90 hours, right? Like straight. And I'm like, you know what? Like I kind of like my bitch a little bit. Like, oh my God, this game just never ends. But also in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm having the time of my life. This game rules, you know? Like I never had a time where I just felt so irritated at a game. And if I did, I would just stop playing it. Like I'm not going to force myself to play a game if I'm having a bad time. So, and it didn't happen that much this year. Maybe once, maybe twice, something like that. And the rest of the time, you know, probably played, you know, at least played like, I don't even know, 70 games or something this year. At least touched, you know, for a decent amount of time. So, yeah, it was a fantastic year for games. Probably my favorite year for games in quite some time. But I say that almost every year because I feel like every year has more and more variety. You know, it's just like video games are cool, man. So my other goal for the year for 2026 is to try to play 50 games again and beat them, which I hit this year, which didn't even feel like a challenge. It just happened, you know, naturally as I was playing stuff. And I want to do a stretch goal this year of trying to get up to 75 beats. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not going to force it, but I want to try to fill my time with some great titles and play a little bit more and see a little bit more. And then my other goal is 2 more goals. One more is to play some more stuff out of my comfort zone. That includes, I want to try to play through a Souls game this year. I don't know which one, but I'm actually going to commit. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to go in and I'm going to beat it. That's a goal. That's going to happen this year, straight up. And then my other goal is to continue trying other RPGs and tactical games, things that, or other games and styles that are out of my comfort zone or I wouldn't usually gravitate towards, because that has tended to lead me towards games that I absolutely love. And the thing is, no matter what the gameplay system is, I usually find something to enjoy in them anyway. So yeah, maybe I'm too easy to please. I don't know. I'm just having fun out here. But yeah, anyway, that's 2025 game of the year. A little bit of resolutions. Dude, my number one goal is just to keep on having fun with video games, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. So if you guys enjoyed the video, let me know what you thought in the comments below. You can follow me on all social media. All that's in the description as well. I also do a podcast called Indie Quest. We do that every other week. We try to mix it up, have different formats, different voices on there. We have a lot of guests. You know, we do some music-themed episodes. We do episodes based on singular games and do reviews on them. It's my labor of love. Really, it's one of my favorite things I've ever done on the internet. And then I also have another podcast, which is all about movies. We just did our favorite things we watched from 2025. So I have some superlative episodes on both. So IndieQuest has a game of the year. Monthly Mishap has like a favorites list episode too. So check them out. IndieQuest, Monthly Mishap. Thank you for making it this far. I don't know how long this video is going to end up being. I just gave myself a lot of work just by recording this, but hopefully it was worth it and you guys enjoyed it. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. Bye.